Thank you for joining XROM, which is India's first AR/VR focused podcast. And today I'm delighted and honored to have with me Dinah Olynick, who's the founder of MV4 Method, a Canadian XR studio dedicated to creating impactful apps and experiences. She's an engineer, XR designer, speaker, and host of the XR Magazine podcast. So, Dinah, I really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. Why don't we start with a brief introduction, background, and what got you interested in virtual reality?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, so because I come from that background of engineering, we usually as engineers kind of are related a little bit with the tech in some ways. So for me, it has been always a curiosity and being a little bit like progressive person, thinking in, oh, I wonder what is next, the futuristic stuff, gets my attention. And but back home where I am from, I'm from South America, that was not the case. I studied engineering and I finished my studies, got a job as a director of quality management in the government. And then I decided to come to Canada. And when I came to Canada, it was difficult to get a job because engineering is a regulated profession here in Canada. So eventually I got a job as well with the government, and I started to do my own mobile apps without coding. So using kind of like friendly platforms for that purpose. And I sold some of those apps. And that's what led me slowly being in the ecosystem of apps to know a little bit about virtual reality, to know about the headset, the new devices, all of this. Once I wore one of these headsets, as many have also expressed, then I realized, oh, this is something in which we need to jump now, not later, because if we do it later, it's going to be too late. So that's why it got me super interested. I think that the main motivation was when I tried one of those ones, the headsets. Yeah.
Lovely. How cool is that? And I guess to the listeners, what they should take away is that, that yes, I mean, this is the time, I mean, if you want to kind of understand what AR, VR, MR is, or the metaverse, right now is the time to get your hands dirty, do some course, listen to podcast, update yourself, reskill yourself, because I think the entire the way we live work is going to be upended in the next few years, so I think there's so much opportunity. So whether it's individual, your consumers, or enterprises, organizations, businesses, or government, they all need to jump in right now, and if they do that, they'll create their preferred future. Now post Facebook rebranding as Meta, there was a huge hype, around Metaverse, and there's so many people who've come with their own version of, or what they think the Metaverse is or is going to be. What do you think is the Metaverse, and how do you think it's going to impact the society?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. In the first place, I actually think that the metaverse is not something that is out there yet as something tangible that we can see and describe easily, as much as, for example, when the internet came out and it started to be an idea and there was rumors that something was going to change really the way that you communicate, that we interact. I think that we are at that stage when at the beginning of the internet, we didn't know exactly how it was going to be. But the idea, the philosophy behind is that we can communicate with people that are in other places, for example, with our own avatars. The interoperability is something that is important that also is not there, which means that we can move our assets or anything that we have from platform to platform. Right now, it is segmented by platforms, and probably because we are in a world of business, it is going to continue to be like that. The idea is that this is going to allow us to transfer our data from one platform to the other one. And companies as well have a very big role in this, creating standards and protocols that allow for this, as well as governments and regulations that, of course, help the safety of people, because transferring data is a matter of ethics and a problem that we have right now that might put people in risk with their data. When technologies are very new, there are also high risks because everybody's experimenting. with how the new features can be, what engages more people, etc. And in that process, things might not be totally considered. Like, for example, the data, the privacy, the level of advertisement, all of those ones are concerns with the metaverse. And the reason why I speak about particularly in those concerns is because many people have heard around what can be the metaverse. So a general idea, maybe some people might have a general idea, but about the risks, maybe not people know about the risks and the ethical implications that we have. I say, when these technologies are new and we seem like an outsider, that we haven't used the technologies yet, we say, oh, that's a problem of those companies. They will manage that. But in reality, it starts with every single human being, with having these ideas and sharing it with other people. So governments, the communities around, etc., start to speak more, get more worried, and together we can create an environment that is safer and that is more friendly. So the metaverse is this idea of being able to exchange data, information, and our own digital bodies in different places and communicate in different ways.
Right. And you rightfully pointed out that, or in a Web 2.0 world, the data has been hoarded, it's been manipulated. And I hope that we don't take that forward into Web 3.0 and the metaverse. And yes, there is, these, we need to have these conversations, and create more and more conversations and make people aware about the opportunity of the metaverse, because I think the only way you can drive adoption of this technology is when you bring it down to everyone, make them understand the possibility and the opportunity of it. Though there's, like rightfully pointed out, it's not all pros. There's a lot of cons which is loaded, and it's only when we have these conversations and we involve everyone, I think we will nudge the big tech companies, the government, and the ones who take the calls to kind of make sure that we create technology which is human first. You spoke about interoperability, and you spoke about the data being how it's being manipulated and hoarded in the Web 2.0. The entire ethos of the metaverse and Web 3.0, the metaverse says it's going to be interoperable. So far, I think all the businesses have run in a top-down hierarchical manner, where we hoard data, and because data is the new oil, and everybody understands that, that's where you make your money. And that's the reason I think Facebook, the model, the business model is everything is free, but they are the richest company in the world. And their reason they're richest company in the world is because they use your and mine data to kind of create more profit. Now, interoperability, decentralization, taking the middleman out of the picture. How do you think this is going to pan out? You have any idea around that?
I think that it has to be a work that has to be done, in my opinion, from the governments or from the law aspect, because companies by themselves, as you mentioned, when they have the opportunity to monetize in ways that are very profitable for them, most likely they are gonna divert to the options that are presented that are more effective for them. So, because that cannot be led totally entirely to companies, and we can see the clear example with Facebook and what happened with the data, all the cases that we've probably heard. And if you haven't heard, making a quick search on Google will show a little bit about the scandals, etc., that have happened about data privacy. But I think that the two main sectors will have a great impact, which is governments and the law, and educational places, educational institutions, which is where new generations are learning about how to create these experiences and what it takes to create safe stuff. The ethicals of creation of technology is something that for some reason we don't see it always as a set standard in our schools, and that should be mandatory. For example, when people are designing apps or experiences, that they say, this is the model of advertisement that we're going to follow. We're going to use these workflows, etc. And this is how users are going to flow. This is how they are going to get the information. This is how they are going to feed the data. This is how we're going to collect it. This is how we're going to use it. Usually in those workflows for design, for example, when the design is happening, there is not a step that considers those protocols or standards or regulations or ethics, even if they are not given by the government, the own company ethics on that. One company that I've seen that maybe has respected a little bit more this aspect is Apple. It's still a platform, of course, that they are gonna make their money, but the question is how they are going to make it. So this interoperability that you mentioned and this use of data, etc., is going to depend on the regulations that we're going to have to push forward and create, and the educational systems that we have to learn proper design, proper ethics in the work that we're doing. Yeah, this also involves artificial intelligence as well. What type of uses are we having, and how companies and users are interacting with the platforms.
Right. You mentioned about Apple being as a company that, it takes data privacy very seriously, but they also are the company which is having a big showdown with Epic because of the 30% fees they charge to the developers. So I don't think there's a single company which is going towards decentralization. Everybody is looking at constantly going towards the narrative of the VCs, the VCs-led narrative of profit at any cost. And I think, when a business, when they start, I think there's no businesses when they start and they've got the idea, okay, let's scam people. But once you start scaling, you have these VCs and their VCs led profit at any cost ethos. Then I think you kind of digress, and then you start kind of figure, changing your ethos, the way you've been functioning in a business, and try to kind of make money. You mentioned about government and educational ways. Could you kind of give some examples on how government, businesses, and education institutes can leverage AR, VR, MR, and Metaverse?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Because I used to work at the government, actually. The governments have the responsibility to use the best of the assets or the monies, like the monies that are collected through taxes, and develop better ways for people. This is like the standard, better ways for people to live. So then there are different sectors: health, infrastructure, education, etc. The way that governments are maybe using these technologies right now might not be the way that private companies are doing it, because private companies usually realize first of the impact, because of the profit need that you mentioned, of the impact that something can have, and they are the first ones to acquire this type of or implement this type of technologies. But governments always follow. Unfortunately, governments are not the ones that lead this type of waves, are big companies first. And then when they realize, oh, there is all of this technology, there people now are using these devices. Now it's time for us to start looking onto how this is going to fit with our work. So what Meta did recently, for example, is this partnership with Microsoft to try to boost this technology into workplaces. And I believe this is the first place that maybe governments are going to start exploring how for workplaces this can be more effective. Many governments or places that are related with regulated organizations try to use platforms for communication that are considered safer for data. So, for example, Microsoft is one that is using North America, for example, because they have standard, very strict protocols for governments to fulfill their requirements for safety for the data. So with a partnership like this one, we can see that in the future, not right now, but in the future, governments are going to start to incorporate this maybe in their workflows. And this is what I mean. Remote work after the pandemic, became a little bit more accessible for governments. Before, everyone was working in an office, and it was very difficult for governments to come to that realization that people can work well even in other environments that don't necessarily have to be the standard buildings that they had. But because they were obligated, now in governments, at least in North America, many people is working under something that is called hybrid environment, which means some days at home and some days in the workplace. In order for the governments to make this effective, for all of this communication that happens, all the data that is exchanged all the time, sensitive information is exchanged because it's governments, etc., then they are gonna be using these technologies, hopefully in a couple of years, to make the remote work more effective, which means maybe using some sort of devices like augmented reality devices for fast communication, remote communication. And Teams, for example, which is an app from Microsoft, is one that is right now presenting all of these options of XR presence through avatars and sharing offices, digital offices, etc. That is one example. Of course, in health as well, we see these examples of using extended reality or virtual reality, particularly for surgeons, for digital therapy, which is one of my passions, which is related with the fact of how we can use, for example, nice environments when people don't have access to relax before surgeries or to manage pain, etc. All of this research has been done and companies are doing it, like clinics are doing this. And education, of course. So then schools are studying, and I'm speaking inside the government ecosystem, schools are starting to use these technologies to build their own apps to teach curriculum in the way that they feel that is more interactive and more effective for kids. So that would be some of the examples of how governments would be using these technologies.
Right. Yeah. So exciting things. I think just before the pandemic, I mean, nobody would even think about, remote work. But I guess the pandemic has been a game changer. And I think post that, more and more businesses are leveraging the hybrid work model. And when you do that, there is so much the world can completely change, because I think the largest existential crisis is the climate crisis itself. With this hybrid work model, we can completely reduce our work print, the carbon footprint. So exciting times. But yes, I think the technology is still in a very nascent stage, and it all needs to start binding, with AR, VR, MR, 5G, IoT, with sensorizing the entire world, artificial intelligence, possibly maybe making avatars intelligence, and so on and so forth, and Web3 becoming the underlying economic layer of the metaverse. And I guess that's when we'll have the metaverse. And then I think instead of us going to maybe like a school or a college, the college will come to us, and instead of us going to healthcare, the healthcare will come to us. And instead of us going out every day for work, we will be collaborating with people around the world, touch feeling them, with haptic feedback, possibly suits and gloves and things like that, like they're sitting right next to us. So exciting time. Now you're also the founder of MV4 method. Could you talk about your studio and maybe some of the experiences that you've built for, possibly you can talk about that.
Yeah, thank you so much. So to tie on to the last part where I was speaking about my process, I was creating these apps, then I found this XR exciting field. And after that, I decided to educate myself better into, now I have an idea of how to create a regular 2D app and publish it to the stores and make business apps for people. Now let's see how it is to work around VR or AR technology. What is required? So for that, what I did is that I decided to take a program that was comprehensive enough to go through XR development and also through XR design. And that involves working with the Unity engine, which is one of the ones that are available for this type of creations. And through that experience, I was able to build certain spaces for a platform that was new at that time. Right now it's not so new, but it's called Spatial. So in Spatial, what I did is that I created a couple of spaces where people could maybe relax. I created certain spaces that were for offices. And then for me, and that's why I say to everybody, the time to jump into this is now. When platforms are starting, this is the best way to start showing work, because once they are saturated and they have so many users, it is a little bit more difficult. So whenever you see an opportunity, that's one of my advices. Whenever you see an opportunity to join a platform that you can see that maybe has some potential, try to reach out and say, hey, would you be willing to showcase my work? I am willing to showcase your platform. Let's work collaboratively so we can all work together. And that might lead to a possibility of more people seeing the type of work. So that's what happened to me. I published these spaces, and because the platform was starting out, they showcased these spaces in the feature page, and more people started to see the spaces. So then from there, I started to get clients, and kind of one thing led to the other one. But in summary, XR design concept is this process where all the workflow that is required to create an app in the design stage is part of what we do, which means even using artificial intelligence, as you mentioned before. I believe that artificial intelligence is another type of, area that is not going to be an area. Everything is going to be mixed together. Web3, artificial intelligence, and XR, all the three are going to be like the what is going to form this, the metaverse. But using artificial intelligence is something, for example, that for architects is very, very useful right now, because having the possibility to feed onto an idea that we want about some graphic stuff, or 3D models, or videos, or music, etc., and then have artificial intelligence to create, is gonna fast track the work and the way that architects are doing, and any other artists, etc. So using artificial intelligence for creating the concept design of spaces, and then once the concept design is created, being able to create the models so people can use the spaces for their purpose. So examples of spaces that we built are spaces for educational institutions. For example, a professor from Germany reached out to us to ask us if we could build a university, because he wanted to deliver his digital media classes in a way that is the modern way. How do you teach digital media if you're still using just video? Like, it doesn't make sense. It should be at the forefront of what is the technology. And I thought that it was so smart, his approach. So we built the university, and right now he's giving his classes in the building that we constructed for him. That is a digital building, and people from all the world can join his classes for the university that he is delivering. And those because of him, we started to get other clients building similar offices, building spaces that are more for creating experiences, a little bit like in app, not games, but app for educational, etc. So that has been the work that we've been doing, and we have partnered recently as well with Exclusible, which is an even higher or bigger company that is dedicated to build not only the workflows for Web3 implementation, but a platform, a CRM, that allows companies to integrate their NFTs and the more advanced, I say right now, campaigns for marketing through NFTs, and their spaces for businesses that are bigger. Like they have built spaces for Vogue, for McDonald's, etc. So we partner with them as well for this purpose. And yeah, that's what we do. But the most exciting part and the most important part of this process is that the main learning we have undertaken on this is, as I mentioned, leaving it for later, because we believe that we're not prepared, that this is too much right now, that maybe it's not going to touch me in my life right now. it is might be a mistake, because later on we might find how artificial intelligence have replaced the standard jobs that we have, and why we didn't jump when we heard briefly about this. So my main invitation is, this is the time is now. I cannot emphasize this more. This is going to touch every single place on the earth, and it's going to touch all the jobs at some point. So because if this is the case, then studying a little bit, and honestly, there are millions of resources, as we know, to study for free. You don't need to go to special schools. You don't need to pay thousands of dollars. If you want to do it on YouTube, you can learn absolutely everything. And not only that, but there are many blogs, as you mentioned. There are podcasts for inspiration of founders, how they have been doing it. Not necessarily creating your own app, but in your job, at some point, your job is going to be transformed because of this. So how can you get a better job? How can you get a higher salary? How can you not allow yourself to artificial intelligence replace you? Because this is what is going to be happening. Artificial intelligence is going to replace many jobs, which is not bad. It just means that we evolve to other ways of living and other ways of work. So it's totally possible.
Yes, this is the time. I mean, anybody who's listening, I mean, because there's so much opportunity, and if you want to create a preferred future, right now is the time. And you also mentioned out that there's artificial intelligence. It's us maybe in the near future will be able to possibly automate everything, because even right now with generative AI, I mean, there was one field which was creativity, and people were thinking that creativity is something that artificial intelligence will not touch. But we have Stable Diffusion, Dolly 2, Midjourney, creating text to images, text to 3D, text to songs, and though these are in a very nascent stage, possibly in the next few years, when the capabilities of these algorithm grows, I think there'll be the sea change on how we kind of create and consume content. And instead of running away from it, I think we need to leverage this. There are a lot of Indian women here who are still, having a wait and watch approach. What would be your advice to the women over there who are looking to start a business in the metaverse?
Yeah, amazing. I think that is so beautiful to see how you might have created an illustration in the past, and it's a 2D illustration. You might think, oh, artificial intelligence is going to replace the work that we're doing. The best that we can do is to evolve with the technology. How can I use now artificial intelligence strategically to create other type of art, to create other type of painting? Or how can I use virtual reality to bring that art that I did in a way where people can access and see it and interact with that in another way? Maybe now it is the painting, but as the person fixes the gaze on that painting, somehow there is movement, there is an animation, for example. There are so many creative ways to do stuff. And the main thing is that people, maybe we don't realize right now, as when social media started, we thought that it was just to be connected with friends, right? This is the idea that they sold us onto. But then later on, we realized that it was us that was going to be like the product that was going to be commercialized with the data, etc. However, it presented other opportunities that we didn't see at the beginning, and it's for businesses. It's absolutely the same. If you have a little idea, maybe a little scope for a business, maybe a little aim of commercializing something, in virtual reality is going to be the place where you're going to be selling your products in a near future. And even when we say virtual reality is even still a little bit limited, let's say mixed reality now with the new headsets that are coming up, and the augmented reality glasses that are now in the world right now commercializing. So this is a reality now. There is no when that will be, it's real. So people, you might not be the user directly of those headsets right now, but other people in the world are going to do it, in North America, in Europe, in Asia, in many places. So those are new potential clients that you might have. So no matter the type of idea that you have, if you start to think right now in a potential strategy to commercialize any type of product in this media, it's like when initially people started to think how to commercialize my product in social media. It's the same way. It's just that it's another another type of media. And I definitely encourage everybody. I am an immigrant. I came to Canada. I didn't know the language. I had to learn it by myself. And on top of that, learn all of these new studies, etc., by myself. So anybody can do it, honestly. If we have internet at home and we have a computer, you don't even have to have the headset. With a computer, you can start creating amazing things right now using Web3, augmented reality, virtual reality, and artificial intelligence. So I say augmented reality because in e-commerce right now, which is going to be like XR commerce or something like that, we can right now create, for example, versions of products like digital clothing, etc., and commercialize it to platforms ultimately like Facebook, Instagram, etc., thanks to their authoring tools that they have available for this, like Spark AR and Lens Studio, other platforms, and Effect House for TikTok, etc.
Right. Thank you, Diana. Really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. Yes, exciting, super exciting times. What's your moonshot? What comes next after for you? And maybe also talk about your XR Magazine podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, so very quickly, inviting everybody to check the XR magazine. We are actually launching the actual magazine right now, where we're interviewing great founders as well in the world, like the founder of Gravity Sketch, Trip, Inmerse, Archeo, etc. Those ones that you have been showcased in the Facebook Connect or Meta Connect, those ones are being interviewed in the podcast, but we are extending now to these exclusive interviews with the magazine. So it's called dianaolynick.com/XR magazine. And yeah, I feel very, very excited. The most important, as always, is to establish the connection. If you have any questions, just let me know. I'm always available in all social media platforms as Diana Olynick. And my main aim, always, as coming from the ethics from engineering that I was educated in, is how we can create a better world. Actually, my tag is, what world are we creating? That's the tag for the magazine. That's the tag for my brand. What type of world are we creating? And I'm going to leave you with that.
Diana, really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. You've been doing some really, really awesome works and building and enabling people. And I guess that's what needs to be done, because I think the world has changed. There's a awesome dynamic which is going on. And you mentioned your tag, what can we do? And there is so much the common man can do. I think we need to, we always underestimate the common man, and we think that the people with the big post, these entrepreneurs, these government leaders are the only ones, are the ones who can shape our future. But I think the game is changing, and today the power is going back into the hand of the common people. What we need to do is join hand, learn, be a lifelong learner, take up challenges, and you rightfully pointed out, I guess people around the world are more and more open to having conversation, helping each other. And I guess that's what we need to do to create a better world. Reach out to people, create conversations, engage, and make sure that you create that nudge into making the world better, a better place, rather than blaming somebody else. So really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. And my listeners, if you like what you see in here, then please press the subscribe button. Until next time, see you guys. Bye-bye. Thank you, Dan. I really appreciate this.